All right, welcome back, everybody. Um, Welcome to this is our 10th session, believe it or not. We're moving right along. And I got to give a special shout out to all the people who have been in every single session. We appreciate that attendance. There's a lot of valuable content, as I'm sure you're aware. And welcome in the new people. Welcome to Information Exchange 2026, their virtual series. We're about halfway through, a little over halfway through. And we have we have the rest of today and all day tomorrow with a bunch of new sessions. So please come back. Just some logistical things before we kick off. Number one, everybody is muted and your video's off. So if you're an attendee, we cannot hear you, we cannot see you, so no worries there. Everyone else, I appreciate you coming in. This session is very unique. So up until this point, you've been on a journey with us. We've covered a lot of subject matter, a lot of different topics. This one is a little different. It's very much a frontier in which BCC Software has prioritized as where we want to go, what we want to focus on, the new technologies that we want to launch for you guys. And so the team here, I'll have them introduce themselves in a minute, but the team here is going to kind of elaborate on what this landscape's looking like and what's accessible to you now and where we're going. So before we dive in, we have a poll at the beginning, but before we get into that, I'll have everybody introduce themselves in the order in which they're on the screen. So Ren, I'll pass it to you.
Okay. Hello, I am Ren Hansen, and I work in our professional services team, and I work through a lot of the integrations. We touch on APIs, but this particular is architect demonstration is close to my heart. It's a lot of use across the API suite. Been here a really long time, like 25 years with BCC or one of our companies, and we'll talk to you guys about APIs today.
Jim?
Okay, thank you, Brandon and Ren. Yeah, so I'm Jim Mann. I been with BCC for just under 30 years. I just realized it's August 14th, so
Wow, you're
that will
coming
be
up.
30 years. Yeah, coming up. So been in various roles at the company. Currently, I'm responsible for business development. I focus on the OEM relationship. So where organizations, partners are looking to integrate our technology within their technology. That's my focus area. So glad to be here. Thank you.
Vlad.
Hi, and I'm Vladimir Nikolin. I'm a software development engineer. I'm one of the engineers behind both Architect Reach and BCC Architect, what we're going to be talking about today. So those are also close to my heart. I've been around with the company since 2012, so 14 years, not quite as long as Ren or Jim, but love it just the same. And I live in beautiful Washington State, so glad to be here as well.
And just a special note, both Ren and Vlad are technically on vacation. So they have come to present to you from not their normal locations. And we appreciate them taking the time out of what would normally be their PTO to introduce this topic to everybody. So thank you to you too. All right, so as you are well aware, we have our chat and our Q&A sections of our session. Please put any information or questions you have regarding your different client scenarios, customer scenarios, or your own in those chats so that Ren, Vlad, or Jim can answer them. We do have some technical people here, so if you have some technical situations and you have some challenging situations or some that you've been giving some thought to and you're not sure exactly where you want to take them or how you want to explore an automation of sorts, please put those into the chat and we'll make sure to answer those. Before we dive in, I want to just do a kickoff poll. And this one we have on the screen for you as well. So in a moment, it will launch. And I just want you guys to answer this question. How are you currently processing for postal prep? Whether it is mostly a manual process, a desktop on-prem software, which I'm sure is going to be a common one, APIs, web services, outsourcing to a third party, or you're not sure, or you don't currently do postal prep. And I'll give everybody about about a minute or so to answer these responses. We've got over 50 people with us today, which is really nice. So we have a nice solid audience. It's a very unique topic. I'm really glad. Option G, Tom said, option G, LOL, all of the above except for F. So also Tom said, congratulations, Jim.
Thank you.
All right, we got 27 responses. We'll give it another minute or two for some other responses to come in, and then we'll keep rolling. So right now, desktop and on-prem software is roughly half of total responses. And then we've got some other we got some manual processes, some custom integrations, as well as some APIs and web. And then Tom over there with all of them. Okay. Thank you for everyone to responding to that. All right, let's keep rolling. Jim, take us away.
Okay. Let me get rid of the screen here. So what we want to do today is talk about unchaining your workflows. And really what we want to do is we're looking at, ways automation can remove some friction that everybody has or people have in this industry and other industries with everyday mailing and data quality processes. So when you think about costs associated with processes that we're working on today, it's very, very common to look at the common costs, focus on, postage, printing, labor, things like that. But the real costs happen, in my opinion, the real costs happen upstream a little bit earlier in the process before the mail is produced. It's almost like looking at Hemingway's iceberg theory, right? What's above the water or above the surface is only part of the story, but the real work is below the surface, and you got to factor those steps into the process as well. Things like disconnected systems, rework, exceptions, just to name a few. So on this screen here, we wanted to sort of list the common pain points I think all of us in this industry have dealt with or feel today. They all have a cost related to them. I'm not going to walk through all of them, but I'm sure you're familiar with exporting and importing data. But the one I do want to call out is juggling disconnected applications. And there's a little bit, was looking at some statistics and found that, a typical enterprise has over 800 applications that they're working with on a daily basis, but only 29% of those are integrated or automated, right? So when you talk about CRM or ERP, e-commerce systems, hosted websites, a lot of those are still working independently or in silos. So what we wanted to do today is sort of talk about these pains and provide some potential solutions for everybody. So, all right. So the central idea behind today's session is simple. Manual workflows are not just inconvenient, they're expensive. So the good news is that with API-driven automation and organizations have, a more practical way to remove many of these inefficiencies. They can improve accuracy, they can help with speed, and they can make things more consistent. So, all right, so today we're going to talk about, as we walk through the webinar, you'll see how the organizations are using APIs, how they're automating critical workflows. We're going to kind of walk through these 5 steps throughout the presentation. The first thing you need to do is determine where the pain points are, right? Where's the leak? Did you pop ahead a couple slides? Sorry about that. Yeah. So yeah, just kind of, and then, how APIs can help. We're going to talk a little bit about two of BCC solutions, our API solutions. We have other solutions, but two that we're going to talk about today are what we're referring to as the BCC Architect API Suite. We're going to do a walkthrough, and then we'll talk a little bit about the importance of API first strategies. And I'll pass it over to Vlad.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. I was debating on how to, or thinking on how to start talking about this, and so I decided to start from afar. My wife makes fun of me for that, but I think in this case it will be quite suitable. So as a hobby, I restore old bikes, from steel frames from the 70s and 80s. And a few years ago, I took one of my frames to a powder coating shop, and I wanted to have it painted blue, the color of a bike that I had when I was a kid. So when I showed up at the shop, I knew exactly what I wanted, and I talked to the shop owner and I said, this is what I want. And he said, well, there's a poster behind you, and pick a shade of blue. I turned around and there were 50 of them or so. And all of a sudden I had no idea. Like I came to the shop and it was very clear what I wanted. And then all of a sudden I was not so clear. I got the bike painted and it turned out to be a different color than I wanted. So in this case, we only have 2 shades or 2 solutions. So it's a lot simpler and not as confusing. And we'll try to not make it confusing, but rather pretty clear, right? So we have BCC Architect and we have Architect Reach. They're 2 solutions. They both do pretty much the same thing. They automate the same work, but they can be used that would be used in different environments under different circumstances, and it depends on your preferences. Again, at their core, they solve the same business problems. They automate address quality. They do postal processing optimization. The business outcome is the same. The workflow is the same, but they're still different. Why would you choose one over the other, and what are the benefits and drawbacks? And that's what we'll try to talk about. So the main difference is deployment and who happens to manage it once it's deployed, right? So BCC Architect is the solution that you deploy. I noticed that in the poll here, I think more than half of the people said that they are using desktop integrations. And so this is BCC Architect for you, right? So it comes with an installer, you deploy it, you update it, you take our patches, but it gives you all the control over the infrastructure, security, deployment model, right? Architect Reach it has the same capabilities as BCC Architect, but it's a managed cloud service. So you don't host the software yourself. You just invoke the services through REST APIs and OAuth secured endpoints. So with Architect, you run it. With Architect Reach, BCC runs it. I mean, it's really that simple. They're not competing. And here it says, Brendan, I think if we could jump back to the earlier slide. Yeah, so they're not really like competing, right? It just, they're suitable for different circumstances, kind of like shoes. When you have running shoes and you have dress shoes, a lot depends on your lifestyle, a lot depends on the occasion. So same thing here. So BCC Architect, like I said, you run it in your environment. Why would you want to do that? You have data that you want to stay within your network boundaries, for example, right? You would use Architect for that. So you have some strict security guidelines, or you have your own infrastructure, you have your own IT department. So that would allow you to do that. Enterprise grade APIs, they're time tested, they're battle hardened. This is a solution we've been offering for years. Many customers have integrated with it. So it's embeddable by design. Essentially, it's a toolkit. Again, comes with your installer. When you look at software being installed in your machine, you see DLLs. So this comes as a number of DLLs that you integrate with, right? So with BCC Architect, you integrate it into your application, new or existing. It is somewhat Windows centric. There are ways to go around that, right? But the APIs that we expose, the interfaces are COM based or .NET. That's the most common integration model. So you are tied to Windows in that respect. Again, if anyone's interested, there are ways to go around that. We can dive into it more if you want, because Architect comes with two flavors. You can install it as a standalone option or a server-based option. And the server-based option would allow you to be more OS agnostic. The output, the business result of running it, yes, it produces like it's production mailing, right? So we implement the USPS rules for you. We perform data quality operations on it, CAS and COA link, and we generate USPS documentation, reports, mail.dat. So yeah, that's as far as Architect. And if we could go to the next slide, Brendan. Architect Reach. So that's the second pillar. And this one is more of a recent offering that we have. And it's designed for organizations that want to keep processing within their, they don't want to keep it processing within their environment, right? So it's something that we do for you. So it's hosted in BCC's cloud. The infrastructure is already in place. You don't need to have your own IT department. There's no server installation. There's no software deployment or software maintenance. Updates are automatic. So instead of spending time provisioning your servers, writing scripts, deployment scripts, integration scripts, you just let us do that. So you just consume the capability that, like instead of operating the platform, we allow you to interact with it through RESTful APIs using JSON payloads. That's a modern approach. You accomplish the same results again as what Architect provides to you, but instead of integrating it into your application, you integrate with it, I guess, is one of the main differences here. It's flexible. The integration options are more flexible, so you're not tied to the .NET COM interfaces that we have for Architect Reach. From any platform, you can integrate with internet access. You should be able to integrate with it. So any application can do that, and pretty much any technology stack as well. So, and the result is the same. It's post already output. We also provide, data quality operations, address correction, and COA, and we do pre-sort optimization as well, and produce the same reports and mail.dat. So for Architect Reach, it's more intended for organizations that do not want to have the responsibility of owning, operating the underlying platform. We do it for you. So with Architect, maybe as a summary, I guess I could say that, with Architect, if you want control, customization, it's self-managed, runs within your environment, you provision for it. With Reach, it's simpler, speed of deployment is also among the benefits. It's a managed service that runs on our infrastructure.
Vlad, there was a question submitted by Amit. So the technology is different. It's a COM versus REST API, but it's mirrored as far as capability-wise.
So underneath, yeah, it's a good question. So underneath, the sort engine is the same. The address correction engine is the same as well, and the same for NCOA move update. It's how they are hosted and served to you, right? So it's compatibility. The parity is almost 100%. There are some things that Architect Reach does that haven't percolated to Architect yet, and there are some things in Architect that haven't come down to Architect Reach yet. But again, this parity is almost absolute. There are some minor differences, and we're trying to even those out. So some features are easier to add and expose through Architect Reach, and some get initiated on the level of Architect. But in the end, this evens out. So I can give you an example. For example, with Architect, you can do, we talked about streamlining the workflow. I think one of the earlier slides mentioned how in this single workflow, you could do address correction, you could do postal pre-sort optimization. right? And this is done as part of a single job. So both Architect and Architect Reach have that, but Architect also historically has had standalone NCOA, like it can run standalone NCOA jobs, or it can run standalone CAS jobs without doing pre-sort. Architect Reach did not have that capability. And so it can run CAS and it can run NCOA, but as part of your job. So prior to doing pre-sort, it's integrated in the job. We do these data quality operations, and then we do pre-sorting. But so it's not that 100% level parity, but we do support NCOA only and CAS only jobs as well in Architect Reach. We're adding them now, for example. And so this is something that should be available in the near future. So sometimes a feature gets introduced in one and the other one catches on, and the other way around.
Vlad, I know from firsthand that the product roadmap for Reach is pretty extensive too. Can you foreshadow some stuff that might be coming?
So yes, for Reach, NCOA is probably NCOA only support, or standalone NCOA jobs are things that is something that is coming soon. CAS only as well. We currently do not have periodical support. Okay, this is another level, another difference, right? So we do not support periodical sorts in Architect Reach at this point, but support for it is being added in the near future as well, right? And that would accomplish, as far as pre-sort goes, then it would be full parity with BCC Architect.
Yeah. Okay, Vlad, I appreciate that very much. I know we can get very technical here, but Ren has a demo as well, so we're going to get kind of in the weeds there. Real quick, before I pass it over to Ren, we do have a second poll regarding manual task consumption, and I'm just going to throw this up here. Which manual task consumes the most staff time within your org today? And while this is going on, Vlad, I was hoping you could elaborate just a little bit more on. There's a little bit of an unfair question, but if you could elaborate on maybe some examples where an organization structure or an organization workflow is more appropriate for Architect versus Reach, because I know we've had some customers adopt Reach, and then their processing times and the volume of the speed of volume they were able to push through has increased. And there's some advantages there if you're a high volume processor. So can you just take like a minute or two while people are answering the poll and talk about that?
Yep. So again, as I mentioned earlier, right, if with BCC Architect, you are the one who manages infrastructure. So you're responsible for scaling as well, right? So depending on the number of records you run, the number of jobs you run, you are responsible for provisioning for it. With Architect Reach, we do that. We do the scaling for you. So running multiple jobs at the same time or in a shorter period of time, you don't need to worry about using your resources or scaling up for that. This is something that we can do for you, right? For larger, more frequent mailers, this would, again, depending on how much your own IT department can provision for you, the Architect Reach option might be better.
There was a question from Jeff Ray. If software updates are automatically updated in the cloud for Reach, do we have any control over the timing of those updates? For example, with a rate case or reclassification, how do we ensure we are able to complete all project mailings before the increased date, before you automatically update pre-sort software? Or better yet, would we be able to have the ability to run on both old and new versions of the software leading up to the deadlines? This is something that a lot of people keep requesting for a mail manager, for example, like a pre and post rate case toggle of sorts to be able to do both environments. It's a good question.
Ren is the one who mentioned it before about this topic being close to his heart, right? So both Architect and Reach are close to my heart. So one of the things that I am happy about that it does is that we do support, pre and post rate case rollover, pre and post case data sets and rules as well. And I can tell you that a lot of effort goes into it, right? Is to make sure that the software can handle dates that are pre-rate case rollover and post-rate case rollover, right? So that there's quite a bit that goes in there. And both Architect Reach and Architect support that, because again, underneath it's the same engine. But with Architect Reach, we're the ones who deploy it. So as soon as it becomes available, we deploy that on our servers. Whereas with BCC Architect, you are the one who is responsible for running that installer, getting the new rules, the new implementation, and the new data sets that come with your installation. So yes, Architect Reach is capable of doing exactly the same thing as BCC Architect as far as managing the rate case rollover, but you don't need to worry about that. Well, I guess that sounded like did not sound very well, right? But we basically, yes, we have accounted for that, and we are on a very strict schedule for that, right? So as soon as this becomes available, we deploy it and test it. As tested, we deploy it to our servers.
Yeah, that's a huge value add. And I know in our rate case webinars, if the people here had an opportunity to attend those webinars in May and June, that was the most common question was, when will we have a feature where we can optimize our campaigns before the rate case changes are implemented and also after, so that we have that flexibility and we're not on the hook where we're waiting for campaigns to deploy until the updates get pushed. So very good question, and it's a huge value add to what this offers.
And another value add is that you may have noticed, if you have used BCC Architect in the past, right? Just like with any software, any complex software, there sometimes are patches that come out, or service packs. Major fixes go in them, right? Something that is really affecting our customers, that goes into a service pack, and you deploy it. You install it on your own, like we come out with it and then you install it. With BCC, with Architect Reach, things that are even minor, right? Like we can deploy them ahead of schedule. So the patches that don't make it into the official service pack can still be deployed to Architect Reach earlier than they would be, or be available through Architect Reach earlier than they would be through BCC Architect.
Okay, thank you, Vlad. So if anybody else has questions, situational questions just like that one, please put them into chat. I'm going to pass these slides over to Ren. He's going to lead us through a bit of a demo walkthrough to show you guys exactly what that 4-step automation workflow looks like.
And Brendan, we're going to give a few minutes for the poll results here.
Oh no, the poll results already came through. So
they did. Okay.
Yeah, so if you look in chat, there was about 25 responses so far. Importing, exporting, address cleansing, and error correction were about the same. Yep, they were about the same. Manual tasks that are taking up a lot of time. I know the importing and exporting file transfer between systems is a huge qualifier for automated systems. So and that one's starting to tick up there as the majority. So
it does, yeah. Yeah, and that really reflects what we see a lot in the industry. It is interesting to see how many are coming in for address cleansing, and if that type of time is waiting time. People are running jobs and they're waiting for jobs to complete. That is something, and Vlad kind of hinted at a couple keywords there that I'll come back to, is in the scaling part of this. Being able to scale your processes faster is a big part of our APIs. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how these boil out. I like that error correction and rework is commonly a really big suck of time. It's one small error can compound into an entire lost day. Okay, but let's kind of just touch on the 4 topics here. When we talk about integrations or workflows or automations, there's lots of different ways to look at these different steps. And here we've broken it down to these four main topics, really. but one of the important ones, and then the first one on the list here with integrate, is that an API is something, and it's an application programming interface. So it is something that we have to integrate. We plug it into another software application, or we may use it to develop a new software application. But it is that integration capability. It's taking something that can be we think of it as called. It can be called from another application, but it's a functionality you can embed within another application. And that is, the first step of integrating an API is identifying where it will belong, what technology will work, and that really is considered as an integration into your system. Where this becomes business value, and like once an integration happens, we're looking at the validation and standardizing of data. So if we kind of take a step back, if we look at production mailing or even list processing, usually we'll always talk about CAS and NCOA first, and that is the lead into a variety of different processes, whether it's directly going into pre-sort, doing mailings, or if it's standardizing data for duplication searching or merge purge jobs. We find when you have clean data or you have validated data, it's much easier to work with. And it lets you get rid of things that don't hold that same value. From a mailing perspective, we think of that as certified addresses or CAS corrected records, but it really means records that you can mail at a discount. And so there's kind of two parts there. One, standardizing and validating to cleanse the data, to make it look better, more deliverable. But really, it's also postal savings. And what we touch on, well, when we go to the architect reach and architect on-premise conversation, there are some enhancements and differences in functionality. Like Vlad did a great job of talking about like what they are, right? We host BCC Architect Reach, and you host our BCC Architect, like where it's located. But the slight differences, like doing duplication searching, having a cloud-based service to do that. Essentially, you've integrated, you're able to validate and then standardize your addresses, but you can also run processes to eliminate duplicates within that process. So identifying, putting suppressions in place, and mailing to the cleaned, trimmed down version of the list. We left this last number 4, generate mail.dat, because I'm sure anybody doing mail now will probably know exactly what we talk about here. But the idea is that we output the USPS documentation. And this is something Vlad touched on as well. This product is really geared around the USPS processes. And the output from that is all of the reports that you've come to know. A lot of those are standardized across the industry, but there are certain reports that are specific to the products. And whether you're on premise or you're using our cloud solution, you see the same results. So it's very easy to move between the two products because you have the same output. You can rely on the data to be the same and the reporting and communication to the USPS to be the same. And I think we can go forward here, Brandon. Okay, and actually, I think, do we want to do my demo right before?
Yeah, we want to do your demo now. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. And you can leave this here. I'll just grab the screen share.
So before we dive into this, I just want to emphasize this is a conceptual presentation walkthrough, so you can see the details of the software technology and what it does. It's very polished. It looks very sexy. And it is summarized in a presentation format so you can accurately understand all the capabilities that are baked into that software. So Ren, take it away.
Thank you, Brandon. That's helpful. And yes, I don't know how much you guys all love PowerPoints, and they're effective, but I wanted to do something a little different. And in a way, it's showing the versatility of an API. When we talk about being able to plug into almost any application, between the two products we're talking about today with Architect Reach and on-premise Architect, it covers a lot of different integration capabilities. Vlad mentioned the REST APIs, the COM and .NET objects. There are, like, those are the most commonly used, but there are a variety of others. And, you know, being able to plug into certain types of applications, and I hope that I can relay that even this type of application, even like a demo that is more of a presentation, we can plug APIs into. So the idea follows the same kind of track that we've been talking about, how manual data creates friction, which ends up you spending time and costing money. And we'll just kind of do a walkthrough. There's a very similar theme to what we've talked about so far, just the on-premise postal data quality versus cloud hosted. And you can see we're really trying to show the same discussion that Vlad talked about, where it's not complementary or competing objects. These are two ways to do a very similar process to get the same output. And that's really the idea, is we want to be a consistent output for you, so you have a realistic expectation. And we'll take a look at how it works. So looking at the two APIs, both have that same functionality, and we're just kind of looking at different types of systems. So we have existing applications like an ERP system, maybe a CRM, or maybe a web-based application like a website, a data entry website or something like that. And then having that internal, the connected API layer, this is where we've built an integration, or we've had code written to operate inside of another program. And then being able to automate that within your existing process. So if you think about using a CRM, you're using it to look up records, you're contacting your customers, and having a process that can run to cleanse those records. Here, we're actually working with it in its home, right? These records live here. When we export them for other usage, like mail, they'll come out in that clean, usable state. But the idea is that we're not importing and exporting, we're cleansing and processing in this. Now this kind of goes back to the same type of 4 topics that we were talking about, where we integrate, we have standardization, we're enhancing the quality of the data. And then this talks about exporting. And this is more geared towards, like the CRM example I used. If you're processing the data in place, when you export the data in that application's method, like let's say you export a list from your CRM that you're going to send notices to. So you can take that list, it's already cleansed, it already has the address validation portion like ready to be used. So whether it's export or feeding directly into the USPS processing or printing, that's that last step. Then if we take a little bit of a step back, a lot of times we look at data quality being something that you do to the data you have. One of the big, and probably one of the most important places to validate an address is when a human interfaces with a computer. So when we type an address, it's like the #1 reason addresses get miscoded is because people type them in. And if we take a look at validation of a record and where that data capture happens is the best place to try and correct the address, because you have a person either reading, telling you an address through contact, or you're typing an address, and you have the answers, really. You're allowing the software to cleanse the records, but if we can ask that human who typed that address to correct it, it downstream saves a multitude of costs. And if we look at how do we do this with an API, here we just have an integration built into this fancy presentation that is mimicking, this gentleman entering an order. He's typing in shipping address. He wants to make sure that the product gets to his home. And if we just take a drastic example where somebody tried to enter an address and forgot that, this is really causing a major delivery problem, right? And most software in your web entry or data entry should capture this, but where it doesn't capture is adding the zip +4 standardizing spellings and things like that. Now, if I revert this back and we take this particular address, we can validate the address, and now we've got a nice, clean, standardized address. You can tell everybody's happy in the background. But the idea is that, I guess the core concept, like, pictures are great, but being able to integrate that API into just a random process like this, or directly into your CRM as reps are picking calls or typing address data, or anywhere along that point of entry, the customer is entering into your website, or a kiosk, or wherever an address might be entered, tying in that that API call, we can, without hosting software, we just call the API and get the clean data. Now, if we take a look at that, and as we probably, I don't want to say all know, but many people who are processing mail know, doing CAS is our batch processing. We want to cleanse a batch of records, and that can be through standardization of addresses. It can be change of address, postal pre-sorting. There are all these types of batch processing. And here I'm just going to run a batch process to give an example. And you can see it's just kind of working its way through that data set. But the idea is that we're taking a list of addresses, and we're preparing the address quality, getting the reports ready. And then here we have a preview of some of these results. We can see CAS codes and NCOA codes, and I'm just displaying this table to show an example. So we have like an input address and our moved to address. And if I'll filter this just so we can see a lot of the NCOA results, because they're nice to see. You can see all the different codes, USPS codes that return the type of NCOA match that was made, and the data that we get out. We can see individuals, families, businesses, the different types of changes that were needed to correct the address. And then the result code of, did we get a new address back from the USPS or not? And we can see that in this list. There's some interesting information. And then if we take this a little bit further, now we've standardized the addresses through an address cleansing process or quality process. Now we can take that data and use it for the mailing. And earlier I mentioned we can do duplication searching and using it to compare addresses or compare records. In this case, I will just do a quick pass on that data set, and let's do, there we go. Okay, so now we can see it's kind of going through our progress bar here, but it's comparing the duplicates, it's matching likely matches, similar records. And here I'm just going to show a couple examples, but we can see this particular individual, there was a first name, last name, and it matched to a first initial, last name. And you can imagine all the different variations if you've ever run a matching process or tweaked a complex matching process. It'd be great to hear from you guys. But and so here we can see that we have a nice ready for pre-sort list where all of those groups have been merged down to a single, like a master record, essentially. But the idea, different algorithms, different ways of matching the records are supported through the automated process. In general, I do a lot of demos, and in general, I always like stop and have feedback and interaction with my folks. So this is a little different where I'm just going to speak to you. So let's go on to the next part, and we'll do the postal preparation. So again, just following the same process where we're going to run a little batch process, and it's sending the mail off to the USPS. But really here we're sending the data to the cloud. We're streaming it through a web service. We're streaming it back to ourselves. And here I don't maintain any software. I'm not installing postal updates every month or more. And of course, with pre-sort, we're just looking at the sorted information, the postage costs, and the intelligent mail barcode info. But not too much to show there. Okay, so then we look at the output, and Vlad talked about the USPS reports on the slide before. We had the export, but really this is a summarization of the reports that you get out of Architect, whether it's cloud, like Reach product, or if it's on premise, but having the pre-sort reports and container labels. We also do a container listing report, which helps prepare the mail. It talks about, do you band your mail or do you just set it loose in a container? And then some of the USPS, like postage statements, call reports. And then we also do like a zip code listing, gives breakdowns of quantities and things. And then a nice summary report, which really, it looks official, but it's an internal report that talks about all the configuration, your mailing configuration, your settings, basically. And then, of course, mail that data.
Ren,
And then,
Ren, there
yes,
was a
go ahead.
question that was submitted regarding mailable and non-mailable addresses during the hygiene process. The question was, does the customer defaults to BCC to make choices as to what is mailable or non-mailable during this hygiene process? For example, you decide which codes are to be ignored or restricted, or is it still up to the customer to be able to make those decisions?
There's a variety of ways to approach that. We do have some suggestions, like especially in the duplication searching, like that's always an interesting topic when we're pre-sorting. Usually you'll see data prep happen early, right? We're preparing a list, we get it tuned right to the right list itself, and I might go back and forth with a customer or with the origination of the list, and then removing duplicates. And we do have some options of, like with NCOA or with duplication search, to have it make the decision for you. So we could use like a very standardized way to make a decision, but you also have control. So when you're calling the API, how we design that process can be designed to fit your requirements or your needs. So you have full control. So you can get the data back, you can do review and changes, resubmit to the software for pre-sorting. And that's kind of the nice thing with APIs, but we can make it do what you want it to do. So do you want control, or do you want to give default options and let the service itself make the choice? But that might be like obvious choices, like somebody moved and they left the country, right? There is no new address for that user. Do you mail it to the original address where they don't live, or do you, block it and don't mail it? Or even as simple as when somebody does move, what do you do with that record? Do you mail to the original address, or do you mail to the new, or do you have to send a notice to them to request that you update their records? Or you probably, anyone who's moved has probably seen kind of slight changes to the banking system over the years, where they used to never update your address with NCOA. And then they moved to, they'll update your address after a certain time period, or they'll send you a card that says, we've updated your address. If you have a problem with this, come and talk to us. So it's kind of gone through this evolution. Now with banks, they are typically updating your address and they're sending a notice that they've done that. That's what the standard I'm seeing.
But it sounds like the platform itself offers the flexibility for customers to be able to tailor the automation component of this to whatever they're most comfortable with regard to the hygiene. That's what you're saying.
That is, yes. I mean, that's an official way to say it. Yeah. And we make it easy for you, so you don't have to scrutinize every decision.
Right.
There are some really high level decisions, like, and it all goes back to what are you trying to do as a mailer. If you're mailing marketing mail and you're just trying to blast a neighborhood or fill a certain quota of number of pieces, that's not as important. But when we're first class mailer and we're sending a bill or an invoice or a check, then like different questions come up. Do I just mail this out? In some cases, there's security concerns or safety concerns. So how you make those decisions is a lot about the scenario you're working in. Yeah.
There was another question. Kia asked, is there a way we can run reports after this process to update our personified database? I don't know if that's too specific of a scenario for you guys to answer on today's call, but I wanted to pose it to you guys.
Sure. Yeah, and then absolutely. So we give you the raw data basically. So when we process the list, you're essentially, there's no difference between importing a list, processing it through some desktop software, and exporting that list. And I say no difference, but there's obviously a difference in that. But there is no difference in the actual content of the data. So if you're updating your database, was it Personify? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Just updating your database, you have that data. So it's if you exported it and you have a CSV file or you have a data file. Definitely. Now I might start asking more questions like where do you get that list from? Are you exporting it and then we want to import it back in? Or should we have a way to just process the data in place? And that's the choices that you start to get when you have an API. If you have a desktop product, you're kind of bound to what that supports. But with the API, we can start to look at different ways to integrate, make that overall process more seamless for you. But running reports, and that's maybe a loaded statement, but running reports would be kind of like an API integration, right? We take the data, we run it through some type of a analysis or an analytics process and produce some type of report on it. But you can absolutely do that. Yeah.
Can I add a little comment there, Ren, just in relation to this question real quick? So with Architect Reach, we have some data retention policies that we observe, and the data that is stored on the servers resides there up to a week. You have the control. I mean, you can download the results and store it on your own, but with Architect Reach, it stays on our servers up to a week, and then it goes away.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a good point. That is definitely something we didn't touch on, but it is important for the security system of the system. Okay, so just kind of circling back on what we talked about, and this goes back to our larger conversation as well as this presentation, but being able to validate an address at the point of entry, it still is the best way to correct an address, right? Most lists come from some type of data entry, and if we could validate at the beginning, a lot of lives would be a little easier probably. But that point of entry solution is really important. And then looking at like maybe even the question about the loading things back into a database, connecting directly and eliminating that movement, it saves time. Like we can have an integration directly into a system, but really it saves risk. It's reducing risk in any kind of importing problems. I can't tell you how many times, I've helped customers get through issues where there's been some problem with file mapping, and especially with all the different types of formats that customers provide or even that our internal teams come up with. If there's a slight difference and we try to process it in an automated way, they can cause a major problem. So eliminating that manual touch, every manual touch we can eliminate is saving money, really time, money. And then returning the USPS ready output. So this is the output of the overall job, whether it's data quality, cleansing, and then eventually the postal pre-sorting. We touched on how do we actually get the data back out. And so at the end of this, just in case we had questions and things, I've put a little review the outputs so we can look at the data entry form, we can look at the address validation output, the duplicate groups, and I'm demonstrating this from a web URL from our website. So this would be available if you guys want to take a look at it. From a presentation perspective, downstream, if we have any MSPs and things in this call, absolutely, we'd love to work with you guys if you want to have additional tools if you need to do demonstrations. So Brandon, we can all talk about this, but being able to help you guys do the same types of demos for your customers if that's a scenario you have, we'd love to help you with that. But the idea is that you could go to this website and you can see the presentation I put together here. And Brandon, I wasn't sure, are we going to share that URL?
I already did. So
Perfect.
I in chat, for those of you who are monitoring the chat, I did post the URL for this interactive presentation walkthrough. It's publicly available. We also have another one for another software product, which we'll be showing next week at the live conference. Ren did a fantastic job putting together this automation walkthrough, not just to help you, but to also potentially help your sales team, your customers better understand the technology, etc. So this resource is available for everybody who's here publicly. You can go back to that URL anytime, and you can explore it on your own to wrap your brain around it and see exactly what it does beyond today.
Good.
We good?
Okay,
Can I
I'm going
take
to
over?
stop my sharing. Yeah, thank
Cool.
you much.
Thank you very much, Ren. That was, I personally, I'm speaking selfishly here. I found that incredibly enlightening when you shared it with me a few weeks back, and it's such a great resource just to help people sort of self-educate about all the power behind it. So I appreciate you pulling that together very, very much. We are going to move into our last poll. What is your biggest obstacle to automation right now? I know we talked a little bit about automation in past sessions, and we talked about how it's better to be very intentional with your automation direction rather than trying to just automate everything you possibly can. So what are some of your biggest obstacles? Is it a lack of resources, developer resources, staff resources, integration complexity? We're trying really hard to bring that complexity and simplify it down so that you can wrap your brain around it and understand how it can interface with your existing environment. Budget concerns, big one. We understand that right off the bat. Security and compliance concerns. This is something that's ever evolving with BCC Software's suite of technology. And either Ren or Vlad, if you want to chime in with regard to security enhancements to our software, our legacy systems, and time. So please take a moment and submit your poll responses there for us. Ren, Vlad, do you want to talk about security at all, or do you want to do you not want to linger on it? It's up to you guys.
I can speak about the data. I mentioned data retention, but an obvious concern would be customers. How do we store our data or your data, right? If you have all the control with BCC Architect, with Architect Reach, we have your data. We have to operate on it, obviously. So your data is encrypted at rest using strong encryption. You have control over how long you want it there to be. You can delete it right after your job is complete and you've downloaded the results. You have the option to delete it. If you don't, it stays on our servers up to a week. At that point, the data is encrypted at rest, so it is secure. While it's traveling, during the requests that you submit and the responses that you get when you download the results, the data is also secure in transit as well, because we're using RESTful APIs over HTTPS. So we use strong encryption protocols, and so I mean, this is, I guess, a question to answer the question regarding data, and kind of flows with what I said earlier about data retention. And Ren, if you want to speak up about this or anything else, please do as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. And Vlad, I think what you're answering is you're describing how we cover the security, which is really good. Like when people have concerns around security, usually it's an unknown. We don't know what's happening to our data. We don't know that you're secure. We just don't know. So we're not going to do it. And that a lot of times will shut people down. And these are all, like the topics Vlad's talking about, are all very valid. Like you won't find another software provider that does encryption at rest. And that is something that we've really focused on because it's the right thing to do. But really it's a security driver. People want their data to be protected. And when we're talking to the insurance companies or the banks, these are absolutely required. And even for like a small mailer, it's still important to understand that you are in good hands with BCC. I think in terms of your poll, Brandon, like this is a obstacle, right? Security is a lot of times an obstacle to enhancing a process, to bring on an API usage. Just you could see over the last 15 years as we've seen cloud adoption happen, and where that really took hold was when the banks and the insurance companies gave the okay to allow their data to be handled out of their hands.
Right.
And that's really becoming the standard.
There was a really great addition Megan Steinberger added to the poll, which was in option G. Inconsistent data structure from clients was a big reason why they, a big obstacle of why they have not automated more processes. And it's gotten a lot of thumbs up here. So I was wondering if you could both talk a little bit about any methods that are built into the software, baked into the technology to handle inconsistent data structures.
This is an interesting one. So I'm going to give a little shout out to another presentation that we're going to do. So hopefully you guys can come to some others. We'll really dive into this, especially in our Ignite discussion. It's a tough topic, honestly. It's probably one of the most difficult problems I've tried to solve many times over the last 10 years. But you're right, like getting the inconsistent data structures from clients is painful. If you have header rows on your files, you can at least make some sense of it. But even then, you may get consistent files for 3 weeks, and then the 4th week you get inconsistent files, and it breaks your automations. And those are really hard to get around, especially if you're not a software company or you're not an engineering-based shop, because like engineers like to solve those types of problems. But we will see in these other presentations some of our dynamic input field mappings, where we can now build aliases or templates essentially that say when you detect these types of columns or these field headers, they map as an alias back to a common house format. So being able to define a clean data layout or a schema that is an absolute requirement for automation. So how do we merge all of this disparate data sources and formats into that house format? And shops that I've worked with, like really big MSPs where we're dealing with millions of records a day, you have to have something like that. And so almost with every customer I work with, there's some form of this is how we handle the different formats. And that could be a lot of manual work. I would say 80% is manual work. And that's really what drove our Ignite dynamic input mapping. But I'd love for you guys to hear that conversation.
So Ren, we actually do not have a virtual session dedicated to Ignite. That's a little.
We do not. Okay.
We do not. So I wanted to correct that real quick because
Okay,
I know
you.
I know you put together Ignite is a standalone product that warrants its whole other conversation. We don't have time to get into Ignite today, but we can drop the. I know you built an interactive presentation for Ignite as well. I will put that in the chat shortly,
Sure.
so that everybody, if they are interested in Ignite and some of the more robust automation capabilities that are built into Ignite's repertoire, you can take a look at that product, and we can explore further. We do not have an Ignite virtual session, unfortunately. We will be talking about Ignite at the live conference next week in person, at the Live Information Exchange Conference. So if anybody here is sending a representative from the organization to the live conference, there's a dedicated table talk session for Ignite. So you'll all get to experience that. I will go ahead and drop that URL in here in a moment, but if I'm going to pass it back over to Jim Mann, who can take us through the rest of the deck today.
I think that was Ren.
Oh, Ren,
Yes.
Is this yours?
Yeah, I'm going to keep going with you guys.
Go
I
ahead,
got the
Ren.
yeah.
But just to carry on with what you were saying, Brendan, like definitely there's a lot of folks here, and take this offline if you want to dive in and go through some of those things. Reach out to us. We'll set up a time to go through it with you guys. We can do one-on-one type meeting.
Absolutely.
Sounds good. Okay, so and again, this is really kind of coming back to what do we see out there? Like what are people doing, and in terms of the terms here, the shapes these integrations take. they're all different. Every customer I work with, whether they have their own requirements, they have an idea of how they want to operate, or we're trying to fit into an existing like known business process that you've got to flow from intake through your production floor. All of these have this different shape to it. And that's where the group that I work with in our professional services team, we kind of take on those challenges when there's something that's just not quite right. Or, I notice a lot of people listed engineering resources or developer resources, lack of resources. It's a hard position to fill, especially in a kind of a mailing operation. If you're in a software company, you're targeting something a little different for your employees, and not having those resources is where we come in and help. When we talk about API first, and it's interesting, we had a lot of internal conversation around this slide. When we talk about API first itself, the term, really what it's talking about is that you prioritize designing your processes around what an API can do. And in our case, we've provided this API for our customers, for you guys. And really what we're talking about here is why go to the cloud? Like, why go to a hosted process using an API? And Vlad hit on it, Jim hit on it, Brandon's hit on it, that a lot of these are less IT overhead. And I kind of jumped down to number 3, but it is really, a few years ago, I put together an ROI on manual effort to maintain our products. And we looked at Architect, we looked at Mail Manager, we looked at Bulk Mailer, and each of these require monthly updates, right? So we have to install updates every month for CAS. We install updates almost every month for pre-sorting. All of these updates require different depending on the software. Maybe it's taking it offline, maybe it's making it unavailable, but it's usually an IT person because it requires that higher level permission. And it is like almost a half-time job. I wouldn't say full-time, but it is days of work every month to just update the software and to maintain it and make sure you're in compliance, make sure you have the right rate case version installed. Like it just becomes, you're maintaining your own software. So all of that overhead falls on you. Moving to the cloud, not only does it move that management of the software, but it moves the compute. And that's what people don't really think about. But imagine you have a server and you're paying for that server, for how much it costs to run, to maintain, to perform updates. There's a pretty large cost for a customer to run their own server. When we bring that into our cloud, we're taking on that actual work. So what you're paying for your server is what we're paying for our server also, but we're just doing the work for you. So we're taking on the work, but we're also taking on the cost and the actual effort of performing the work. So it's not only cost savings and convenience. There's just a lot of benefits in different areas. Looks like we jumped to another poll, and definitely let's take a look at this one. I think
So
I think we're okay on that. Yeah, if there's questions,
okay, cool.
Jump in.
So this one I don't have set up as an interactive poll, so I want everybody to use the chat here. If you had to put just put a letter in chat whether which integration project is most likely going to happen for you over the next 12 months. What are you looking into? Some sort of CRM integration. This one's a big one. This one's one that a lot of people are asking for so that their data can go to and from a CRM system. Real-time address validation, postal automation, data quality improvement, third-party tools, or other. Please fill in that we didn't build this into an interactive pool because we can't do an other option. So please use the chat right now and put in which one resonates with you the most based on what you're seeing here. We got a few for D. Tom put in an other platform rationalization. A lot of Fs. Anybody want to fill in what they're whether they have a project planned or not? We got some Bs, some Cs. Cs seems to be a common one. Postal automation in general is obviously a common one that's application focused. Any particular CRMs that people, I saw there was one A in there. Jeff Ray, what kind of CRM are you working with? We're just curious. Any thoughts based on what people are submitting here? Ben or Jim?
I mean, these are
Yep.
great,
Yeah.
great conversation starters, that's for sure. Yeah.
And as they've mentioned multiple times on there, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I think those that are selected E are it's very interesting to me. Probably a web to print solution, I'm assuming, but it would be nice to know a little bit more about who those companies are, what the solutions are.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Okay. So we're going to be wrapping up our slides here shortly. Jim, take us home.
Okay, I'm gonna talk about the last two slides. So, one of the nice things about attending information exchange is we sort of give you a look into the future. We wanna be very open and transparent with what are we looking at and why. And I think the big thing here is, look what is the market really telling us? I spend a lot of time working with partners and customers and different vendors, and what they're telling us is that get on board with the API first strategy as best you can, right? I know it's not easy, but kind of start wrapping your head around those strategies, and they are the market is also no longer looking for those isolated tools or one-off applications. They kind of are. There's still a best of breed out there, but they want them to work together. They want to pick what they want is a staple. Using a mall analogy. They want that staple application like a CRM, and then they want to be able to access other tools as well. So. And I know a recent survey I looked at, about 80% of organizations are, APIs are critical to their digital transformation strategy, right?
Yeah.
It's happening. So as far as our what we're working on, we kind of look at it in two different buckets. They both work hand in hand. You got the platform and the technology, and then you have sort of what are we looking at from an ecosystem standpoint? We can't do this alone. We have to partner. So from a platform standpoint, we're focused on making it easier for customers to consume our services, our web services, and integrate, right? That was one thing I think I saw in one of the surveys. Developers are hard to come by, right? Or they're busy doing other things, right? So the easier we can make it, the more, probably the higher adoption we're gonna get with these services. We need to make it, and we need to make it safe. We have to make sure that what we do is absolutely safe, whether it's production, whether it's non-production. We have to make sure that we're doing things the right way. So, and then we haven't talked about this yet, but with web services, the pricing model is going to be a little bit different than on-prem software, right? So these will all take discussions to kind of figure out how you're using the software, how you're licensing it, and then that drives sort of where we're going. But generally speaking, when you move into Azure or any of these other technologies, and we're doing the same thing, it's going to be volume based. The ecosystem. So we're investing in partner relationships, OEM opportunities. We're looking for, we talked about different CRM applications. We want to build these integrations as best we can, and we're looking for feedback on these things. I was just on a partnership call, and somebody in the chat asked, "Hey, are you going to work with HubSpot?" Right? HubSpot's I think one of the largest CRM providers out there, and what I believe they're trying to do is they wanna use HubSpot as their staple, and they want to integrate at least address standardization, and then they can build more of a reoccurring process instead of a batch process.
Yeah.
So tighter integrations, and then an open ecosystem, and that is very critical, especially in our industry, because we're not going to be able to meet everybody's needs. So there are going to be situations where we're going to want to partner, we're going to want to integrate, especially with web to print applications. So, all right, and the last slide is something Ren talked about, and I think it became apparent in this presentation that there's so many variations in how customers in the market, how they want to use these solutions. You know, it's really going to take a lot of times, it's going to take a conversation so that we can talk about what are your problems, what are your goals, and then in turn, then we can then align it with the right solution. As Ren and Vlad noted, they are both resources in the process. Ren, especially Ren on the professional services side, that's what he does every day. He's working with customers on how to implement our solutions or how to improve a solution or whatever it may be. So take advantage of that. And then we have within the web services world, and you know, we have samples that we can provide to make the transition as easy as possible. Swagger files with our Reach product, and then I think, you know, just helping you. The last item is really just helping everybody automate as best you can and reduce those leaks.
So we were very candid with questions. We appreciate everybody's questions. And this was a long one. This was a dense one. There was a lot of topics covered in this one session. So we appreciate everybody hanging in there. If you felt this was positive, if you felt this was a great session, throw a smiley face or a celebration emoji in there. We love to get that feedback. I know this was a very unique session for many people. And we'll be doing more of these types of informational webinars to get them out to people so that they can better be prepared for the future. It was mentioned a couple times regarding Solimar. Solimar did a fantastic presentation on Tuesday. If you missed it, we will be sure to get you everybody who attended the recording. And Solimar is directly tied into our API environments. So we do play nicely with their systems, which is really wonderful. And we work with them very closely. Direct Logistics was also a great sponsor of ours for Information Exchange 2026. Very valuable partner and takes a very specific role in the industry. If you want to learn more about Solimar, Direct Logistics, as well as several of our other strategic partners, we have a partner panel at 4 p.m. today. So please come back. It's an open forum. We're going to be talking openly about a lot of different industry topics. So, and you're going to get it right from the strategic partner representatives themselves. So if you're interested in more about that, please come visit. I'm going to cut this short and give everyone a 10-minute break to come back to us at 2:30 for the address update dilemma. I appreciate everyone's time. I really appreciate Vlad, Ren. Thank you so much for taking time out of what would be your vacation schedule. And thank you so much, Jim, for leading us through this. I know it's your new role here, and we're excited that you're pioneering that forward. Anything else before we say goodbye to everybody?
Nothing
All
for
right.
me. Thank you,
Thank you,
Brandon.
everybody. We'll see you guys shortly.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.